Welcome to Modern Management of the Older Adult, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence.
Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Dr. Jeff Musgrave, currently serving as faculty for the Modern Management of the Older Adult Division. Super pumped to talk to you guys today about physical reserve, real life physical reserve, and covering a case study of an older adult who unfortunately experienced a hip fracture. We're going to talk about physical reserve, what it is, why it's important. We're going to talk as well about what typically happens to people 65 plus when they incur a hip fracture. We're going to talk about a couple research articles that outline typical recovery. And then we're going to talk about this case, a little bit of just what's possible for older adults when they have built physical reserve, cognitive reserve, and why we should be after that for older adults. But before we get into that, just want to cover some of our offerings for modern management of the older adult. So Essential Foundations first cohort has already started. First live meetup is going to be tonight. You can catch us if you've not done Essential Foundations later in February. We'll have another cohort up. If you've already taken Essential Foundations and you're looking to get on the books for Advanced Concepts, we still have a few spots for that, but that's going to be kicking up tomorrow. So you can check that out on ptonice.com. If you're looking to see us live on the road, we're going to have more options than ever. We're actually going to be in Tennessee and California this weekend, and then next weekend we're going to be back in California at Santa Rosa, California, and then Greenville, South Carolina. So if you've been wanting to see us on the road, more opportunities than ever. All right, team. Super excited to talk about this. Something I'm very passionate about, super excited to bring to you. If you have been around the ICE community for a little bit, this fitness forward approach, you're going to hear this from every division. This isn't going to be completely new, but we are going to be looking at this through the scope of treating older adults specifically this morning. So strength training fitness is for all humans. It's for all humans and especially older adults. We want our older adults to have as much strength and fitness as possible, the endurance they need beyond just the basics. We're really after that extra. We're after building that margin for our older adults. One way to think about this, if the idea of reserve is new for you, is to think about a gas tank. If you think about, I don't know if anyone likes to drive around with the gas light on. I'm guilty of that. My world's pretty small. I'm only going a few miles at a time. But it's basically like riding around with the gas light on, that you need to go get more gas, and you've got just enough to make it every day, and you only have enough gas, enough money to put enough gas in for the next day. So any unexpected stops along the way, you're likely to run out of gas. And that, unfortunately, is the case for our older adults that are living with low physical reserve. They don't have extra gas in the tank. So if something unexpected comes up, they could be in an emergency type scenario. They can't complete activities of daily living. They can't live independently. There's no margin for fun, for social activity. We're talking about the majority of older adults having just enough gas in the tank to make it from one day to the next. And because of that, we see this across the bodies of research, that many older adults, even though when they walk into your clinic, they may have nice clothes on, they may look fresh, they may have great conversations with you, but what you don't see is maybe after that appointment, they're gassed out for hours. They are not able to do anything outside of your appointment. Some ways you'll hear this if older adults are living with low physical reserve. They won't schedule an appointment with you and anyone else, whether you're in home health, whether you're an outpatient, like, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment that day. I can't do both in the same day. That should say something to you. That's a warning sign. Hey, we're living with low physical reserve here. But the reality is, living with low physical reserve, being largely sedentary, a lot of our older adults are not hitting ACSM guidelines. They're not getting after it in the gym. They're not getting their heart rate up. They're not lifting heavy things. They're not building and creating that margin. So unfortunately, when something like a hip fracture occurs, this is a huge deal. Most of us are familiar with these statistics. If you ask any older adult what they're scared of, if they're having challenges with their balance, they're gonna be like, I'm worried about breaking a hip because they've had a friend that didn't do well. They know even some of the statistics sometimes. This is a scary thing, and the research really backs up that this is often a life-altering injury for a lot of our older adults. So when we're thinking about people 65 plus and what typically happens to them after a hip fracture, one observational study from Tang et al., 2017, found that only 31% of people 65 plus that had a hip fracture, 31% returned to the same level of independence for their ADLs. Only 31%. That's crazy. That's less than a third of the people that have a hip fracture can do what they need on the daily in their home. Only 34% return to pre-fracture mobility status for their transfers, for their gait. 34%, 2017. This was not that long ago. But it's not looking good here. We look at a study from Panula et al. In 2011, found that 27% mortality rate at 1 year. Almost a third of older adults after hip fracture are gonna die from that condition. 79% mortality rate at 9 years. At 9 years. Crazy. So when you dig into that study, just a little bit more, we find out that the top two complications are cardiovascular disease, complications from cardiovascular disease. The second is complications from dementia. So we talked a little bit about physical reserve, ways to think about physical reserve, but also cognitive reserve is very important. And really these statistics, after you're familiar with the research for older adults, knowing a lot of them are sedentary, they're not hitting ACSM guidelines, they're not getting their heart rate up, they're not doing cardio, they're not lifting heavy things. So when we think, okay, they've had a hip fracture, they don't get fitness forward physical therapy, they don't get connected with the fitness community, they didn't have any reserve to begin with, they don't get a good rehab experience that even gets them to where they were before, so now they can't participate in anything meaningful as far as exercise and those social connections. And the sad part is, all of this is primarily preventable. If we're building this physical reserve for older adults, if they're able to physically get out, if they've got that margin, they're more likely to participate socially in their communities, whether that's church or book clubs or going hopefully to some type of community-based fitness program locally would be incredible. But it's just sad that that's a state of aging right now, primarily through preventable things. And just an encouragement that we can do this and build some meaningful physical reserve for the older adults that we treat. We can do this stuff. So now the fun part. So we're going to talk about a case study very near and dear to my heart. I was there on the day of fracture for this person. We've got a 70-year-old. She is a local business owner. Her name's Beverly. Incredible. She gave me permission to share her story. So prior to joining a community-based fitness program, she's a member at Stronger Life. Incredible person. Before she came to us, she had been on metformin for 12 years to manage her diabetes. She reported to us that at that time, she's got several dogs, loves her dogs more than most people could imagine. She loves and takes great care of them. But she couldn't carry the 25-pound bag of dog food. She's having to literally drag it across the floor to get her groceries in. When we asked her about exercise in the past, she said, maybe a week. I could handle about a week of exercise classes. I just got bored. Wasn't fun, wasn't interesting, just never stuck. So fast forward, Beverly has, after 6 months of doing high intensity cardiovascular training, working on her strength. At 6 months, Beverly is able to get off her metformin, per her doctor. She no longer has diabetes. She has already reversed a chronic condition she's had for over a decade after only 6 months, team. 6 months of the right thing and consistency can reverse some of these chronic conditions that lead to complications down the road for our older adults, limit the quality of their life. Just let that sink in. That is nuts. That is nuts when you think about it. So fast forward 3 more months, Beverly is now, she's done her first 5K. She's qualified for the National Senior Games in the 400 meter, the mile, and the 5K. After never being a runner before, never being an exerciser. Okay, only 9 months of fitness. She's lost 25 pounds of weight. She is also deadlifting 115 pounds for reps, from 25 to 115 pounds. Beverly has built some significant physical reserve. Okay? Unfortunately, though, despite this reserve, she did have an injury. She had a fall laterally, had a hip fracture. She ends up having surgery, gets a femoral nail, 4 days in acute care, 4 days in acute rehab. They couldn't keep her, had to send her home. She was doing too good, blowing the minds of all the medical professionals. She's trying to race the guy next door to her on sit to stands and down the hallway. He's just laid up in the bed, same injury, doesn't want to move. Beverly's over here trying to spur him on and encourage him. Just crazy stuff. So after she leaves acute rehab, she gets 2 weeks outpatient, fitness forward PT, understands what she's been doing in the gym, going to return her to that. So at 19 days after this hip fracture with a nailing, she is dancing at her son's wedding. No cane, dancing at her son's wedding, 19 days out from hip fracture. We covered these brutal statistics on ADLs, on gait. She is not even a month out dancing. This is crazy. What's possible when you have so much physical reserve, when you've got that extra strength, you've got that extra gas in the tank. So 5 weeks out from hip fracture, Beverly has come back to class, still doing some outpatient PT. 6 weeks, kicked the cane to the curb. No walking device. Those statistics we talked about earlier, only 34% returning to pre-fracture mobility status. Beverly's there in 6 weeks. This is nuts. This is a completely different path. This is bucking the trends. This is what we want for our older adults. We want them to be like Beverly. We want them to build that physical reserve. Just incredible recovery. Back to class, having fun with friends, encouraging new members. I got to see it before my own eyes yesterday. What a moment to see Beverly walking in without her cane, beautiful gait, hugging her friends, having fun, lifting heavy things again. She's already returned to lifting more than double the weight she did before she started with us. This is what's possible. There is a different path for older adults. This is why this fitness forward approach, building physical reserve so people can also build their cognitive reserve, interact in these vibrant communities is so important. There's a different path available. We've got to make that available to our older adults. They have no idea that this is even possible. We need to share the good news. We've got to be hope dealers and let them know. We've got to ask them for these big goals. Beverly, as soon as she went in to the first interaction with her older adults, she said, I've got to dance at my son's wedding. I've got about 2 weeks. So you got to give me all the homework. I need all the stuff. I need you to come back later. I want 2 sessions in acute care. What am I going to do when you're not here? And really pushed every provider she interacted with because it wasn't enough for her. She's got so much physical reserve. Beverly recovered better than most of us would hope to. Just incredible individual. But we need to inspire our older adults. They have got to know what's possible with building physical reserve. You know, I think about those goals that our older adults, we really have to dig to find out what they really want to do, what's really meaningful. I think sometimes we feel like our sessions fall flat or we can't get people on board. And oftentimes I think it's because we don't dig deep enough to figure out what they really want to do. What's that dream goal? You know, if I could wave a magic wand and you could get anything you wanted physically, what adventure would you go on? What would you be doing with your time? I think if we can dig deep enough and we can connect them to those truly meaningful goals, you're going to have no problem getting your older adults to sign up for lifting heavy things, for building this physical reserve, building their cardiovascular capacity. It's not going to be a problem. So just to kind of wrap this up. So Beverly spent less than 1/70th of her life building physical reserve. No history of exercise. You're going to have lots of clients like that walk through your doors. Share Beverly's story. She wants you to share her story of what's possible. Reversing chronic disease, improving her quality of life, building reserve strength, doing things at 70 she had never done in her life, like running a 5K, going to the National Senior Games. This is possible for your patients. They just need to know it's possible. Okay, so don't let your patients become another sad statistic, mortality statistic. Let's share the good news of what we can do through building physical reserve. Let's dig deep for those big goals that they're looking for, that can really drive and motivate them to get on board with this fitness forward approach. It's really about the benefits team. All right, that's what I've got for you. I hope you guys have a happy Wednesday. Love to hear from you. Any similar stories, thoughts, questions about this experience with Beverly. Have a great Wednesday, team. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the MMOA podcast. If you found this helpful, please share with someone that could benefit. And if you're looking for more practical content to help you better serve older adults, head over to www.mmoa.online, where you can learn more about our free resources, our community, continuing education courses, and our certification. Once again, that's www.mmoa.online. Thanks for listening.